you wish people would stop romanticizing, because you've lived the reality of it. Story 1: Alcoholism. The number of dramatic characters who drown their sorrows by throwing back bottles of hard liquor while remaining healthy-looking and functional. The reality is so much uglier and sordid. Story 2: Leaving a toxic relationship. It's not sunshine, rainbows and instant reclamation of who you are. It is an exhausting process that involves untangling yourself from a person who doesn't see you as a person. Story 3: Working with animals. Veterinary medicine. We don't play with puppies and kittens all day. Honestly, only 10 of my day is spent with the animals, and the rest is dealing with humans. We are severely underpaid. We deal with emotional and physical trauma both in the animals and ourselves, and the most common thing we get hurled at us is we only care about the money. Even the veterinarians are buried under piles of debt and are barely making it. Do you want to know why Fluffy's vet bill is $5,000? All that money is going to corporations and pharmaceutical companies. It absolutely kills us to hand you an estimate that we know is extremely expensive. We are drowning alive out here. There's a reason this industry has one of the highest suicide rates. Story 4: What a lot of people would call romantic persistence. The idea that if you just keep chipping away at someone, asking them out, making grand romantic gestures, wearing them down, they'll eventually be won over by the sheer dedication of your desire. There's a person in my life now who's like that, and it is exhausting, infuriating, and unsettling, sometimes in turns and sometimes all at once. Take no for an answer, whether you're a man or a woman. It's not cute, it's not romantic, it's just shitty juvenile behavior. 80s teen rom-com should not be your guide to how to live life. Story 5: Trauma in general. Edit. Reading through some of these comments. Our trauma doesn't give us the right to unauthenticate other people's pain. Pain is relative, and everyone's pain is valid. Competing in the Pain Olympics is romanticizing your trauma. I was more referring to how some people think it enriches one's life story when in actuality, it wipes it clean of any potential, hope or promise. Story 6: Stalking. It's not funny to have someone follow you in the dead of night with the intention of kidnapping you. It's not funny to find photos of you sleeping taken from outside your bedroom window on your friend's phone. And it's most certainly not funny to feel as helpless and scared as I did. I tried to take my life because my stalker said if I told on him, he'd kill my parents, because I saw no way out. Stalking is no joke. Edit. Anyone else who comments something along the lines of people don't romanticize stalking will be blocked. Please, go look it up for look at the previous comment saying that. Now, if you would like to politely ask me where it's been romanticized, I would be happy to give you a couple examples. However, anything less than polite and open-minded will be blocked. Also, thank you for all your support. I didn't expect to get so many comments. I promise I'll try to respond to all of them by the end of the day. Story 7: People that spend a night or a week outdoors and think that they know what it's like to be homeless. Or basically anyone that can decide to stop being homeless anytime they want to. It's an entirely different level of pressure and anxiety when you can't just choose to go back to a home. Story 8: Mental illness. I've seen an increase in shows having characters, mostly teens, wishing for a disorder like it was an accessory. Newsflash: it's a daily battle that will never end, and will truly deteriorate your brain over time. Story 9: Teacher. Here movies and films that have the epic teacher who is amazing and idolized and changes every student's life, and everyone says if we had teachers like this, I actually would have learned something. No, you wouldn't have. Those teachers are romanticized and not realistic at all. The only exception IMO is Dead Poet Society. It's realistic because the teacher got scapegoated and fired at the end. Story 10: Babies. You're never prepared. Look at any first-time thrilled to be pregnant mother to be with her starry eyes, and babies are so cute. Talk and listen to all her plans for after the baby is born when the pregnancy is over, and everything will be so much easier, compared to same woman 2 months after the birth. Just offering to hold the baby while she has a shower will get you the same gratitude usually reserved for kidney donors. Story 11: Being a touring musician in a low-level band. Living in a van with 3 other stinky drunks, waiting for the next inevitable vehicular disaster, not eating for days, staying in filthy motels, sudden snowstorms, weird drifters, shady truck stops, etc. It was fun for the first half of my 20s, but it's ultimately a lonely and disassociated lifestyle. Story 12: Homelessness. Couch surfing. There was nothing fun or cool about not knowing where I would go tomorrow. I was taken advantage of by a lot of people because they knew I had nowhere to go. Living on the street was significantly worse. I didn't feel like a nomad or whatever the hipster nonsense people think happens when you don't have a roof over your head. I didn't feel like I had some incredible earthly experience or gained any special wisdom. All that happened is that I got traumatized, lost all of what little I owned, and realized that most people are awful when they know you can't do anything against them. It's also shockingly expensive to be homeless. I had a job at McDonald's, but I didn't have a home or kitchen, so I ate out every day. I ate cheap shitty food, but it adds up. I needed a gym membership to have regular showers and would get a hotel whenever I could. I paid people to let me stay with them. I hardly had anything left to save up. Story 13: I did volunteer work helping women who've been trafficked, been in the industry for too long and wanted out but didn't have the resources, and domestic abuse victims. I really hate how work has become this: do a dance on TikTok to sell some pics and you can make a bajillion dollars or whatever, when the reality of most work is homeless women, women who were teenage runaways, and other vulnerable groups. Those movies about a prostitute being swept off her feet by a rich handsome Prince Charming is so far from reality it makes me sad to watch. Story 14 being a lesbian. Straight women will say I wish I could date women. It would be so much easier. They wouldn't last 2 weeks after changing their dating app preferences. Story 15 being a full-time caregiver. It's hard, it sucks, it drains you and you don't get to live a life. Edit to respond to a couple comments. I did not choose this. It was forced on me because there is no one else. I haven't been alone in almost 10 years. 10 years. If I can't even go to the store by myself, my health is in shambles. And mom is a psychopathic, racist, homophobic narcissist, always has been, but it's worse now. No one is higher would put up with it, and she'd get kicked out of any nursing home we could find. Story 16 The love of a good woman can fix a bad man. Or the idea that women want a bad boy. Not that I don't believe someone can change, but if someone is fundamentally disrespectful, aggressive, detached or controlling, the best woman in the world isn't going to change that, and vice versa for women too. It is a more common theme for it to be a bad boy trope and a good woman, but it can be in the reverse of course. Story 17 Autism, especially autistic women. I'm not a tortured genius, and I'm not your manic pixie dream girl either. I'm just a human being trying to deal with the fact that no matter how much I train my social skills, I'll never be able to make connections like everyone else, or talk to people without eventually accidentally making someone mad and trying desperately to pick up the pieces afterwards. Story 18 You're welcome to keep romanticizing it, but saving a life, at no risk to my own, was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Edit I looked this up. I've never seen anyone express the above before, but actually it's common, the what-ifs especially. If I had taken a different route, taking similar time and effort, I wouldn't have been there. If I had been 2 minutes earlier, she'd have been fine until after I was passed and then died. And if I was 2 minutes later, she'd have been dead by the time I got there. It's supposed to be glorious, but really it sucks. I don't wish I hadn't done it. I wish there hadn't been a person drowning. Don't swim alone and/or while impaired. Story 19 Animal rescue. I too frequently see people online commenting about how they'd love to rescue the dogs, and having 40 dogs milling around their house at all times is the dream. It makes me want to cry, genuinely, aside from the constant veterinary care in general, and the money that you shell out of pocket too, the very many emergency trips that land you in the overnight clinic for 6 hours, the constant feeding, medicating, cleaning up after, and socializing with tens and tens of dogs is a full-time job that requires 247 of being on. Add in your actual life, like a job, school, and personal relationships, and it all falls to chaos very quickly and is very hard to escape from. Your average high-occupancy foster home does not look like the photo spreads from Better Home and Garden, and it doesn't smell like a Bath and Body Works. You and your clothes don't either. That senior rescue that used to live stream their deck with all the little senior pups outside is a complete facade. The actual trauma of picking up a dog off of transport whose bones are nearly poking through their skin, of breaking up a fight between 2 dogs that could kill you if they wanted to, of receiving your very many own dog bites, of watching a rescue flinch because its owners used to throw them into the pool by their tail, of making the call to let an aggressive dog who loves only you go, of making the call to let a rescue go because they need 15,000 of veterinary care and you couldn't raise the funds, of the falling on your by slipping on freshly mopped floors, of the neurotic one that breaks out of the house in a rainstorm at 3 a.m., of driving to work and realizing your stepped-in dog on your way across the yard to your car, to name a few of the more palatable experiences. For every life saved and rescue rehomed, I like to think I would take all of the trauma again and again, but it hurts my heart to know so many people think it's dandelions and butterflies. Being involved in animal rescue nearly ruined my life, and I know too many people that have fallen victim to it but will never get out because, if not us, who the else would be crazy enough to do it? Story 20 Trigger warning. Controversial topic: armed forces culture. My entire family is part of it, and it's not glamorous or easy. Story 21 Having big. It's hard to tell what is the bigger annoyance. The lower back pain or the inability to find clothes that fit properly because even plus sizes default to a normal chest. I have to buy bathing suits one size too big just to have adequate chest coverage. Story 22 Addiction. I feel like nearly every piece of addiction media makes it out to be an unhealthy habit that takes a little bit of willpower to break. The reality is people being trapped living the same horrible day for years of their life and escape by a miracle. It really is a life-ending disease that people outside of it can't comprehend. Story 23 Mental illness. So sick of people being in a bad mood and saying I'm so bipolar, or OMG I clean all the time, I'm so OCD, like please just SDFU already. Story 24 Being a long-haul truck driver, I'm not being paid to travel. You see very little except long stretches of highway and then small, select areas of each city or town you stop in. The work is hard. It beats the out of your body, your mind and your family. You spend most of your days exhausted and lonely. Story 25 Men continuing to pursue and harass women after being turned down. It is not pleasant and can terrifying for someone to not take no for an answer, or the idea that harassing someone with the hope of wearing them down, often shown positively. Story 26 Adoption. Some us end up with absci families. And people are so busy telling us adoptees we need to be grateful. They don't listen to us. Plus, the amount of insensitive jokes you hear because no one considers there might be adoptees present. I'm not saying being adopted is all bad in every case, but for many of us, things aren't perfect. Story 27 Not working due to disability. So many people think that being on disability is a constant vacation. No, it's not. I can't believe the number of people who don't realize that a life of pain and bad health, plus a life of barely scraping by financially, is not a good life. Trust me, I'm not playing on easy mode. I'm dealing with life-altering illnesses, body-wide daily pain, 13 different daily medications, and a disability check that will forever keep me way below the poverty line, constant doctor's appointments, the pharmacy runs, keeping track of medications, finding a way to pay for all the necessary tests and treatments, etc. And then you get to hear everybody talk about how most people on disability are faking it, how pretty much anybody getting any kind of government help is faking it or taking advantage of it, and it's even worse when you have a so-called invisible disability, which is pretty much anything that doesn't involve a wheelchair. But yep, when you see me with my handicapped license plate, pulling into my very old and very unsafe ghetto government apartment with my bag of pills from the pharmacy and my food from the local food pantry, you assume I'm having the time of my life while you toil away at your job. If anybody has any questions about what it's really like, feel free to ask. Story 28 Autism. We are portrayed as Sheldon-esque genius archetypes or savants that can memorize pi to 10,000 digits and cracking codes right, left, and center. For the most part, we see patterns develop sense because we don't see social cues IDK. But for this everyday autistic, I am trying to mask to keep a job and not end up homeless with a child. Story 29 Celebrity Chefs. Have you seen insert show name NO? I do this for a living. It isn't nearly as fun or glamorous as people perceive it. Back in the 2010s, we had a massive influx of people applying for jobs who'd gone to culinary school because it sounds fun. Okay, go cut this case of bell peppers. After that, a bag of onions, 2 cases of carrots, then go prep the line, but I don't have that much time, better find it. Story 30 Depression. I'm literally depending on my antidepressant to keep me alive. This isn't just feeling kinda sad. Oh, and RFK and anyone who's anti-medication. Story 31 This is trivial and niche, but having fruit trees. People think the trees just produce the fruit with no effort from you at all. We have people ring the doorbell every year asking if they can pick and take our fruit. At least they're asking so we can say no. Every couple years a social media thing goes around saying cities should plant fruit trees instead of ornamental trees to feed the homeless. Y'all, to get enjoyable fruit off a tree, you have to baby the heck out of it, pruning every year, and it takes forever, thinning the fruit in June, otherwise you end up with tiny fruit that is 90 pit. That also often takes forever, spraying the trees every 2 to 4 weeks the entire summer to prevent insects destroying the fruit, constantly monitoring the tree for insect damage, fungal diseases, and bacterial diseases so you can stop them before they kill the tree. Propping the branches up in the fall because, even though you took 80 of the fruit off in the thinning, some branches are still too heavily laden, you never thin enough no matter how hard you try. Sometimes taking care of your tree like this all year minus the thinning and not getting one piece of fruit off it because there was a late freeze. If you count the cost of my labor, it would be much cheaper for me to buy fruit at the grocery store. I don't because it does save me actual money and because homegrown fruit tastes freaking delicious. But those beautiful trees laden with beautiful work are the result of me busting my butt to take care of them, so there is no way and I'm giving some away to a stranger. And fruit trees planted on a city street would result in tiny, nasty, worm-ridden fruit smashed all over the sidewalks. Story 32 Mental illness. Granted, I don't have it as severe as some people, but it still isn't fun. Ruminating for several months straight because of an OCD flare-up sucks. Assuming the worst-case scenario and worrying about every little thing because of anxiety sucks. Doubting your own decisions and being overly harsh on yourself because of low self-esteem sucks. Story 33 ADHD isn't quirky or cute. At my level it's debilitating. Without my medication, I'm essentially non-functional. ADHD affects every part of my life and it's not just about focus. It comes with things like auditory processing disorder, which makes everyday communication exhausting. People who casually take 10 milligrams of Adderall for a 5-hour boost don't have ADHD. I, on the other hand, will likely never go below 20 milligrams of extended-release Adderall. And even that is a struggle. I've spent most of my life taking 40 milligrams daily just to reach some sense of baseline functioning. I've tried lowering it, but it's a trade-off: less strain on my body, sure, but a much harder time getting through the day, and then there's the withdrawal, brutal, physically and mentally. Add to that the difficulty of getting prescriptions filled because of the overdiagnosis trend, and you've got a system that fails people like me. It takes me over an hour after taking my meds just to feel functionalto, have a single clear thought I can grab onto and act on, and if I don't act on that thought immediately, it's gone. That's what ADHD really looks like. It's not a productivity hack, it's a lifelong uphill climb. You know your ADHD is bad when people know you haven't taken your medication. Seriously, edit the overdiagnosis I am referring to are the people who went to a Zoom doctor to get a few mg of instant release to help them focus for 5 hours straight while working from home. As someone on a high extended release dose that fixes my ADHD, I too cannot stay focused for over 2 hours at a time when working from home. It's not ADHD, their frontal lobes are fully developed. Working from home just comes with more distractions. Brains are not meant to do multiple hours straight of work without a break. Unless you take Adderall in excess, whether they realize that or not, these people are using Adderall as a recreational drug, but for work, point blank, period. Story 34 War. Served as a Navy corpsman alongside the Marines. So many Marines joined with delusions of grandeur and a strong desire to get some. I was fortunate that I was never in combat, but I saw the aftermath of what we people can do to each other. Story 35. Running a bed and breakfast. My mother started one in our house when I was in high school. She would rent out all 3 bedrooms, including mine, and I would sometimes sleep in the field nearby. If I wasn't at my dad's, then it was cleaning rooms, making breakfast, and more. She was a single mom and doing what she had to do. I didn't like it, but I respect her, and it meant my sister and I inherited some money when she died last year, or certainly more than we would have otherwise. Story 36. Homesteading. Farm in Granchen. Rural living in general. I loved growing up on a working farm. I love living in the country. I love that I can grow my own food, and identify animal tracks and read the weather and drive anything with pedals and wheels and 100 other little things that rural kids learn just in their day-to-day lives and chores. I have some amazing stories about coming face to face with skunks and coyotes and a bobcat. I once was close enough to a stooping hawk that I heard the mouse squeak as it died. I also have terrible stories about coyotes killing sheep and losing electricity and power because of bad weather and having to spend the night in the barn to keep the cows safe. I was out of college before I completely lost my farmer's tan. I have some hilarious stories about city people moving to the country and the weird things they do. It's hard, folks, especially if you actually want it to work and aren't just playing. Living off what you can grow and store, living off the livestock you can sell at auction or the produce you sell at market is harder than you think. The chores, the constant list of things to do, caring for animals, trying to guess if it's too early or too late to plant, losing everything in a late frost or a summer flood drought, and even the lack of certain modern amenities. It's only the last couple years that we got broadband out where I live. No one delivers out where we are and most people can't even find it. When the pump goes out, we fix it ourselves, and if there's a fire, you better be ready to fight it yourself because the nearest fire department is 30 minutes away. I love it, but it's hard. Story 37. Homeschooling. The studies that people like to cite claiming that homeschoolers outperform public schoolers have highly flawed data collection and sampling. To summarize, these studies are able to look up the stats for pretty much all public schoolers, but only have voluntary data from homeschoolers. Homeschooling families like mine that did a job sure as weren't volunteering their test results. I don't think it should be illegal or stigmatized because it can be amazing, but the homeschooling community at large is also rife with abuse and neglect. I even knew families who pulled their kids out of public school to homeschool because they were tired of having CPS called on them. We need to put some safety measures in place to make sure those kids are getting a proper education and better protection overall. Story 38. Having gay parents. I'm not homophobic, by the way. They are transphobic to me. LMFAO. People think that being raised by queer people is like being raised by saints, but it's just like 2 angry men. Story 39. It's not what people think it is. Being young, I didn't feel in control of my life and my identity until I was at least 36. And yes, I know that's relatively young, but high school, college, and 20s were more difficult than they were enjoyable. Story 40. Forced marriage in romance books. I come from a culture that still has arranged semi-arranged marriages. There is nothing romantic about it, and 85 of those marriages do not end up in happily ever after. Tradwives again. I come from a culture where women are considered second-class citizens. Why so many US women want to give up their agency is beyond me. And again, most women I know, including my own family members that are SHW, are miserable. There is no quieting time, you are constantly working, no pay, and your husband controls the money, and he thinks you're not working because you're home all day. Never mind keeping a household running, taking care of children, and all the other tasks that make up life is more than a full-time job. Story 41. Real-life trauma. It feels like everyone these days wants to have a trauma story. I know they say you're not supposed to compare, but Jesus Christ, people. Story 42. Pregnancy. Childbirth. Yeah, women have been doing it forever, but a lot of them died and so did their babies, and most of them would have chosen an epidural if given the option. Story 43. Being on the autism spectrum. Asperger's. Yes, at times it's useful. But usually it's exhausting, and everyone assumes that autistic means stupid kid with a negative IQ who screeches and then eats glue and runs face first into the wall, or more recently, certain rich canoes are trying to push the narrative that people with Asperger's are just toxic. Nothing to be done about it instead of addressing narcissism and megalomania. I'm so tired, you guys. Story 44. 18Y. Old and middle-aged dude like 40. It's not romantic. It's creepy, and the guy is pathetic for going after someone who still thinks and acts like a child with no life experience. I'm all for age gaps, but I prefer if the woman is not on the cusp of barely an adult. Story 45. The idea of taking a break from life to get your in order. No, I didn't go to a spa to get away from my responsibilities because I'm lazy. I had a week-long doctor-mandated stay in a mental hospital because my brain broke, wouldn't function, hallucinations, paranoia, severe psychological breakdown. Even after they released me, I had seizures and couldn't tell you my name. I now have an entire month of my life missing from my memory. People, especially those that are caregivers, need breaks. The way social media demonizes them is so upsetting and gross. Story 46. ADHD is not cute and quirky, and you shouldn't say you have it unless you've actually been diagnosed with it. And you shouldn't get an Adderall prescription unless you actually need it. Story 47. Living abroad. I've lived abroad for a total of 6 years here. There are chunks of 1 to 3 years in different spots in my early to mid-20s. And now it annoys the out of me seeing US influencers romanticize it and be kinda arrogant about it. They often don't even speak the language of the country they moved to, and none of their friends are locals. They hang with other annoying Americans who force their own way of life instead of adapting to the local culture. If they did, maybe they would realize what I did as someone who really tried to stay away from the American bubble. It's hard, it's lonely as. No matter how close of friends you become with someone from that country, there will always be cultural references you don't understand, slang you never learned. It's harder to be funny and charming in a second language. You miss the ease of just understanding how everything works. The creature comforts of home country foods, transportation, relationship dynamics, public etiquette. Don't get me wrong, living abroad was the most important and impactful experience I've had, and I am happy I did it, but it was really, really hard sometimes. Not to mention, I moved home to the US and all my friends I left behind for my big adventures are now well integrated in friend groups and lives that I wasn't a part of, so now I don't know where I really fit. Again, I loved living abroad for all it taught me, but the people you see online romanticizing it are probably super annoying to the locals LOL and not actually trying to let go of their home country mindset, adapt, immerse themselves in their host community. Story 48 Forensic Work CSI. All these TV shows make it look sexy and cool. In reality, when violence occurs to someone, it is never on their best day, when their house is super organized and all their dishes are washed, the litter box is clean, and the laundry is all in the hamper. There's usually not a super weird or kinky reason why someone committed violence to them. There is usually not any grand conspiracy. The victim is usually a totally normal person living a totally normal, messy life, and then something bad happens to them, and now there are all these investigators in their home, asking questions, going through all their stuff, and there is usually not a eureka moment on the scene where the whole case is solved in an instant. These investigations are long, tedious, and physically exhausting. There are sights and smells that will stay with you forever, and you can do all that work, collect all the evidence, and get it back to the lab to process it and not generate any information to assist the investigation. Story 49 Being a Som. I love it. I love being at home with my daughter every day. I love cooking as well. I also love that I have the choice to do this. It is exhausting though. The house is never the way I want it. Dishes pile up. Some days I'm so exhausted by the end of the day I can't sleep. All these picture-perfect TikTok Soms with their perfect houses, perfect children, time for socializing, going to the gym, cooking fresh food all day are rich and have amazing support systems. The vast majority of us don't. Story 50 Giving up children for adoption. So many adopted children have deep emotional issues from being given up. I'm adopted and had great parents, but still have issues. Mine aren't too bad, but I'm in a group on FB and so many have big problems. Story 51 France. The dogs hit, the cigarettes, the tiny beat-up cars, the street thuggery in Paris, the culturally right-wing politics in the countryside, the 1970s modernist concrete towns. Story 52 The American Dream. The bullshit story of how great it is to be impoverished then become rich. Even when this happens, it isn't the great story they pretend it is. It's a story of state failure to protect its citizens. There's nothing to be proud of when we're talking poverty in the wealthiest country in the world. Story 53 OnlyFans. I feel like it just marginalizes women to their bodies. I admit, it doesn't affect me, but it also leaves a bad taste in my mouth when models make content on YouTube or TikTok that's targeted at a young audience. Story 54 Owning horses. The responsibility is crazy. You don't want to own a horse, you want access to one. We own 6 and are responsible for 10. Every day we don't get days off, we don't get sick days, we don't get vacations. We don't own them. They own us. Don't get me wrong, we love it, but most don't understand the cost and commitment it takes. I work full-time at our barn, and I have to work full-time outside the house to make money. The number of people who buy a horse just to turn around and get rid of it a year later because they don't fully grasp the time and money it takes is disgusting. Story 55 Poverty. To me in films, shows, even musicals, poverty is seen as, oh, lights are out. Let's light candles. Oh, no food. Let's gather what we can and eat fast food. Oh, how fun. Oh, my darn landlord is giving me issues because I forgot to back. Let me have a crazy adventure to make up the amount I need before I get kicked off to the streets. It's not cute, it's not all that fun, it's hard to keep your head above water. Living check to check is so stressful, I don't ever want to feel that again. Story 56 Being a librarian. It's a hybrid corporate babysitting teaching tech customer service marketing gig that pays you like, literally often not enough to live on without a partner supporting you, even if you pay for the grad school required for most permanent full-time positions. And reading books comprises 0% of your job responsibilities unless you do, like, story time for preschoolers at a public library. There are rewarding moments, of course, there always are when you're working with other humans, but 95 to 98 of it is meetings, emails, entitled customers, and now vindictive government entities coming after you. Story 57 Oddly enough, living in the Deep South tends to be romanticized by a surprising number of people. That is not to say that living in the Deep South is some constant barrage of horror or anything, but when I see people making videos on life in the South, they tend to over-glamorize it. I think they are trying to be nice and to avoid offending people who live here, and there are still great things to find here, and it is still part of an extremely wealthy country. But I find people tend to downplay a lot of the problems it has, such as its high levels of poverty, low-quality education in many places, poor access to medical care, religious fundamentalism, low wages, homophobia, etc. Story 58 Past eras, like the 60s, 70s and 80s, Actually, any past era of any kind, Gen Zers my generation seem to be the worst for romanticizing this. My boomer mother looks back on her historical eras with balance. Zers not so much, more of the oh everything was so great in the 80s and 90s. I completely disagree. People forget husbands could legally abuse their wives. Women were truly second, third-class citizens. Until 1966 in Australia, women had to give up their jobs in the public service when they got married. My own mother missed that by only 4 years, having married my father in 1970. Women couldn't even get a loan without a male guarantor until 1971, 4 years before my birth. Children living in situations of abuse were silenced, and that was normal. Zero mental health services, rampant, unchecked abuse, no protections, no effective laws concerning any of it. I think people really underestimate the depths of oppression that has always gone on. I haven't even mentioned the terrible things that went on or still going on with white oppression of indigenous people here in Australia. Babies stolen from their families, and it was illegal for them to speak their native languages. I could write and write and write on that, but it'll stop here. I would never go back to those times. No matter how good the music, how much fondness for those times that we carry into the now, things will never be perfect and oppression will always exist, but it was worse back then, a lot worse. Story 59. Working incredibly hard for terrible pay and appreciation. I work incredibly hard for bad pay and meaningless recognition. How's it meaningless? Well, actually they recognize I work hard, so I get harder work for the same pay, so there's some meaning. Story 60. Being in the adult industry. It's not at all how they portray it on social media, and it's very damaging that so many young women want to do it for a career. Story 61. I am from Medellin, Colombia. And all this tourists, especially young men adoring our violent past, Pablo Escobar and all this narco nonsense. F off losers, your kink ruined our country. Story 62. Owning a small business, particularly with employees. Each employee and their families and young children depend on your ability to steer the ship. You're the one who clients call when someone you hired up. You're the one who has to fill in when someone quits, no matter how remedial the task is. You're the one who has to make the unpopular decisions that affect the people you see every day. It's your assets that are collateral to keep the business running, and there's a good chance you're severely undercompensated, possibly even losing significant money. Story 63. Stripping and going to strip clubs. 99 of the men who go are depressed and lonely and have literally no one to emotionally lean on. It's not a cool place to party. It's for insecure men to get validation from other men and or lonely men who need help or depraved sociopaths. Story 64. Pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood in general. It's not magical, it's not precious, it's not the miracle of life, it's all a lie, medically speaking. A fetus is a parasite. It behaves and sustains itself through parasitism. Same species parasitism is called intraspecific parasitism. Yes, it can be of the same species of its host at the host's expense. Your body has to go to war to defend itself from the fetus, and even then it's not enough. You will still lose valuable resources, and it can cost you your teeth, bones, liver, pancreas, blood, heart, bladder, or even your immune system and more. After that, your body is devastated and in shambles. Your literal mind is on the line, and it's never talked about enough just how damaging pregnancy is. But once someone goes through it and has any sort of trouble or dares to tamper the cloud of sunshine and rainbows, you're shamed and attacked for it. Think of all those people chucked into mental asylums after giving birth due to psychosis, depression, anxiety, and more, just bred and tossed with no regard for their personhood. Think of all those people told to just get over it, or at least the baby's safe. If you dare bring up how traumatic and damaging pregnancy was for you, it's absurd.